You know, it's only in a country like this that I could get the male vocalist of the year.
Last week, Cohen received a Governor General's Performing Arts Award. While he's a bona fide star around the world, musical acceptance here in North America is something new for Cohen. That North America should seemingly so suddenly fall for Leonard Cohen, was this a surprise to you?
I've been plotting this for generations. I could never pull it off. You know, it is a mysterious thing how your work becomes relevant for a moment, you know, and for a long time. I've been doing the same thing, you know, for the past 25, 30 years. You know, I've just been writing from that point of view. Like in 75, when I wrote a line like, "These are the final days, this is the darkness, this is the flood." When I wrote that, you know, 20 odd years, almost 20 years ago, you know, people, what's your beef, you know? What are you complaining about? You know, why so mournful, blue boy? You know, and I think the whole tone of my work, which was, you know, vaguely apocalyptic and wild and black and with a certain kind of humor that was misread as simple depression. That kind of position now is a lot more accessible. A lot more people feel it. Get those insights from any Olympian position like, you know, I understood and anybody else didn't. I was in trouble. And I was writing out of that trouble. And I think a lot of people are in that trouble now. I feel very familiar with the landscape I see around me now.
How do you explain that trouble? What is that trouble?
I don't know exactly what it is. It's just having the rug pulled out from under you. And not being able to locate yourself and reaching out very needily for another heart, for a caress, for affirmation, for whatever it is. It's just a kind of deep neediness and then a kind of manly withdrawal from that neediness and an attempt to reform yourself so that you can exist in a landscape that is blowing up all around you, which is the one we're living in now.
You don't have the music to help push the words along. So what happens when you put your song lyrics on a page?
Well, they're left there to shiver and die if that's what their fate is. You know, if they can't survive that kind of special scrutiny, then you know, they'll just be forgotten. But it's true. You know, a lot of lyrics, like English madrigals. You know, if you look them on the page, fa la 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 la, a couple of paragraphs of that don't read too well. I've tried to eliminate songs of mine that have that quality.
Is there no difference between a poem and a song?
Well, there's lots of technical differences, but it doesn't really matter. You know, when a piece of work is alive, you know it, and when it isn't, you know it. So I think poetry is a verdict. You know, it's a verdict that we give to something that moves us, that has authority and music and resonance. We call that poetry. It exists all lots of places. Some people talk that way. You know, some people talk with a special kind of heartfelt sincerity and significance. Some people talk with a kind of wistfulness, a kind of airiness, a kind of abstraction, a kind of hustle behind their voice. I mean, people have different ways of speaking. A lot of it is real poetry.
What does writing a pop song offer you that writing a poem or a novel doesn't?
Well, the money's better.
It is?
Oh, yeah, it's much better.
Well, I'm glad to hear it.
You know, this is my work. Writing is my work, and you know, in your work you locate your self-respect. So I just go to work, and sometimes it's pop music. I love music, and I love writing songs, and I got very interested in the matter. I don't know why exactly.
You said that the actual songwriting process has no dignity. What did you mean by that?
Well, it has dignity in hindsight, but you can't come. I'm not sure what I meant by that. Sometimes I see myself in the midst of it, or I catch sight of myself in the mirror. You know, this old guy in his underwear. You know, trying to find the rhyme for orange, and you know, playing the same phrase on his guitar 15, 20, 90 times, trying to get it right. There's something laughable and there's something absurd about that, but you know, the nature of work is repetition.
And do you come up with a rhyme for orange?
Door hinge, but nobody likes that one.
If the songwriting process is about repetition and about hard work, how do you feel about performing?
It's the same deal, you know. You've got to find your way into the song. And there's lots of ways to do that, you know. I use wine. I stumbled on this vintage wine that produced, you know, a very acceptable kind of concert. Mm-hmm. And many of the musicians who drank with me agreed that this particular vintage produced a special resonance to the evening.
Concert probably would have been even better had you allowed the audience to partake in this same vintage wine.
Yes, well, you know, that would have exceeded my benevolent resources, because as it was, we were pretty well drinking up the profits.
You have allowed yourself in many ways to go to the edge and maybe sometimes fall over it occasionally. But in a way that a lot of artists, as they mature, they step back from the edge more and more. Do you think you spend as much time there as you used to? Watch that.
I find as you get older, the range of your inner life widens. It's not that you get any better or worse at anything, just that like you're more sad and you're more happy. You know, you're more competent and you're more out of it. You know, you're more attentive and you're more withdrawn. The polarities seem to get very, very strong, and they seem to get wider and wider apart, and the extremes seem to be more and more acute, more and more emphasized. So the range just gets bigger and bigger, until finally, you know, it gets so big that it embraces the whole cosmos and you dissolve, and that's called death.
Ironically, at 59, as he contemplates the final exit, Leonard Cohen finds himself moving to center stage.
I don't want to you know, destroy the hard-earned sense of dignity that I have, with which I'm appreciated in this country.
A photo shoot for a newspaper story. The man of the moment, Cohen is somewhat of a sex symbol. No angel, rumors of his romantic conquests abound. But he also writes about love and sex with a religious reverence and a language borrowed from the Bible. When I read your work and listen to your music, sex and religion keep coming up again and again.
Those are the healing activities that are available to us. That's how we make relationship. You know, we do it in that whole large range of activities we call sex. You know, which is not just the copulation. It is the whole understanding that we are irresistibly attracted to one another, and we have to deal with this. We are irresistibly lonely for each other, and we have to deal with this. We have to deal with our bodies and with our hearts and souls and minds, and it's an urgent appetite. So, and it embraces the whole world. It embraces all of us, and it is what we are doing most of the time. And the other side of that, and it's really the same activity, it's just separated by a tiny porous membrane, is the same appetite for significance in the cosmos, where each of us understands his solitude in the cosmos and longs for some affirmation by the maker of the cosmos, by the creator.
A lot of your music and your lyrics, I have this feeling that there is this feeling of this imminent spiritual collapse. And yet when I meet you, or when I see you in performance or in video, I am left with the impression of here's someone who is very, very much in control.
I thank you for, for buying my cover story of someone who has their act together. But I don't think anybody does. I think that everybody suffers tremendously. And everybody's always on the edge of a kind of collapse. And everybody's always on the edge of, throwing the towel in. And pretty much nobody can stand what's going down.
Is there anything now that you feel more certain about than you did when you were a teenager?
Death.